Alright, so I think we can finally conclude our meeting and we can start production of I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. Does anybody have any questions or concerns? Are you sure you sure? I think we should go over one more time and fix a few things. Alright, well, we've already gone over the notes and everything. I think everything looks really good. Majority of people at this table really like this idea. I think we should go with it, and if something needs to be changed along the way, we can just change it then. A movie that has a bad reputation online, I did not expect for it to be as bad as it was. I watched I Still Know What You Did Last Summer a few years ago, around 2020, 2021 for the first time, and I thought it was fine. I thought it was just a decent slasher. However, as the years have gone by and I've watched a lot more movies and rewatching the first one, I found this to be a pretty bad sequel. But I still think it is decently watchable because I Still Know What You Did Last Summer takes place 1 year after the first movie, and how that affects Julie and how a surprise vacation to the Bahamas turns very bloody. Now, surprisingly for this being a very bad movie, but watchable, I have one positive, and that is easily going to be the fact that this movie does have better gore and better kills in my opinion. I think it's done better, and that's the only positive I can give it because I have a fair amount of mix. And the first mix I want to talk about here is Julie herself. Now, I had a few complaints about Julie in the review of the first one of them being she is one of those final girls that can't survive on her own and needs others to survive. But she was managed to fight off a little bit by herself, so that was why it was there. But in this movie, it's a lot worse because it seems like she's less strong and weaker in this one by having them be able to take her a lot more easily than they could have in the first one. And I also found that just her relationship with everyone, it wasn't as good as it was in the first one. It wasn't as written well as the first one. So that therefore her relationship with the character just wasn't that great. And her relationship with the survivor was just confusing to me on rewatch. But what redeems it to be in a mixed, almost negative, is the fact that they take her character in a way of having her be affected by the events, having her be more paranoid, have a knife with her. And what that does is, they establish it pretty early on in the film, the opening, but what it does is it gives an explanation as to why they don't believe her when they get to the island and she's talking like that, because it's shown that she had that kind of stuff later on throughout the year, and that kind of makes sense why they didn't immediately believe her. I don't mind that, and I think that's a pretty interesting thing to take on for a character, even though it is common for that type of movie. I didn't hate that aspect of the character, but the rest of that character just drags it down, and that's not completely the character's fault. Some of it's the writing, but her character in here is just very mixed for me. Another really big mix for me here is, I know people love Jack Black's character in this one, but I didn't really feel anything for his character, and I didn't really care for his character. So he was entertaining on screen, you know, he was fine. He made the movie he made the movie more enjoyable for me, but overall, he's also pretty mixed as well. And I also did find that the explanation as to how they get to the island and everything, I think is done pretty well, and I actually like that they took the characters to Designated Island instead of the college, and I will talk about that in a discussion for a reason. And I actually like they did that, but it's more or less mixed for how they handle the rest of the movie. But that is it for my mix, because most of it is in the negative. And the first negative I want to give it is, besides the 2 to 3 characters I mentioned before, the rest of the characters I didn't really care for. Some of them I found incredibly annoying, like that one boyfriend of that other character I just did not care for. They're very stereotypical, very written. I just didn't care for him. I found him kind of annoying, stereotypical. The guy at the front desk I didn't care for. So only 3 characters that I thought were fine or didn't mind. I also really was not a big fan of the ending. It was very on the nose, and the killer from the very start was very obvious, because even though I had no memory whatsoever of this movie, when I first put it on, I'm like, oh yeah, it's that guy. It's obvious. So that was pretty obvious to me. as well as just the relationship between the characters and the writing, specifically Julie and the remaining boyfriend or ex-boyfriend. I found their relationship to be so weird in this one, from how they want to be together but she's so distant, and how he just wants to marry her randomly. It just was not put together well and very confusing, especially the relationship with everyone else. Out of all the relationships, I think the one that was probably the most decently written was her and the roommate. Other than that, it was not written well. And again, the writing itself is pretty negative for this one. It's a pretty downgrade with the characters and everything from what we got in the first one. And overall, this movie just feels like it's very on the nose when it comes to everything, and it's just not a real good movie. But I did want to talk about some spoilers, and that is my first spoiler discussion part. It's just going to be the reveal of the killer with Will. Again, as soon as he was on screen, I thought it was pretty obvious, especially with his last name. It was just very on the nose. And this movie also did remind me a lot of another movie with the way they take it. And the twist of having the original guy that thought they killed be alive the whole time, I didn't really mind. It could have been something, but it's just the way they handled it was not good. And it just felt very rushed and just not really well thought of like the first one was. Even though I would not say the first one is like the best, I think it's a decent good slasher. This one, it just felt like a huge downgrade from that one. And this movie also did feel like a lot more like Scream. I understand Scream inspired a lot of movies, but this one, the first movie felt like it took bits from Scream and was inspired by it. This one felt like it took a lot from Scream and went forward. If this movie was on the college campus, it would feel so much more like Scream 2. But because they went to an island, I actually like that they took it to a different place, because it just would have been too much like Scream and on the nose. So overall, I don't even know why I forgot to mention this, but I was also not a big fan of the ending. Now, the trope of he's been alive and not dead is a trope I'm not a fan of in horror. It's one of my least favorite horror tropes. But what makes me not like this even more is the logic side, because he got shot multiple times and then buried down to the ground. Presumably, he was the only one left on the island when they left. So how he survived, I don't know. So I really don't like that element just because of logic and the trope together. This is watchably bad. But if anyone were to say, hey, would you recommend watching this? I'm a fan of the first one. I would say it's not very good, but if you like the first one, I would maybe check it out once. So really, with that being said, I hope you guys like this video. If you do, leave a like, subscribe, and comment down below what you think of this one, or if you liked it, didn't like it, and I'll see you guys soon with a brand new video.